Welcome all, welcome all. Your host Cam is here, and we are having yet another podcast guest. Tonight, we are interviewing Alana Phillips, the event coordinator at the Central Florida Film Festival, and formerly of various Arizona and Nevada Wild West recreations. Welcome.
Hi. I hate to be this person, but it's actually Alana.
Alana.
I've had to do it all my life, but I usually get those people who say Alana or Alana.
Usually I ask. Okay, Alana Phillips.
Alana Phillips, that's me.
Oh dear, I am the worst.
Okay.
It's all good. I'm just to make more work for myself. So, welcome and
hi. Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, what brought you to various entertainment positions?
I have been doing theater since I was 7, and that was many years ago. Anyway, but so I was doing acting when I was 8, and I told my mother that I wanted to be a famous actress, whatever, and my mom said, absolutely not. I'm not going to let you be a child star. And I was so stubborn. And I said to her, well, if you're not going to let me be in the movies, then I'm going to make my own movies. And I grabbed my dad's home video camera, and I would grab my friends from school, and I would just make my own films. And then when I was 9, I decided I wanted to be a film director. And I kind of got the influence of working in film from my parents as well, because my dad used to make surf films in Puerto Rico and Mexico, like The Endless Summer. And then my mother worked for George Lucas in Industrial Light and Magic back in the 80s. So, but then they moved away from working in film after that, and they just, had the normal 9 to 5 and everything. But it was something that like I kind of got from them, but I developed on my own just from the musicals my mom showed me when I was a kid. And then my dad was very into war films, and my grandfather was very into John Wayne Westerns. And so it just, it kind of was adapted that way. And so then in high school, I did a lot of theater. And then when I got into college, I started college in Cupertino, California, and I was living with family over there. And then my college cut my film program. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I just moved from Florida to California. What am I going to do next? And my mother at the time was living in Northern Nevada, and living in the old West town, Virginia City, known for the TV show Bonanza. And she said, well, come here and, figure out what college you're going to go to next. So I moved there, and I was working in a bakery, and the stars of the Wild West show in that town, called the Virginia City Outlaws, would come into the bakery every morning and would get coffee, pastry, whatever. And they knew that I was studying film, and they asked me to be in the show. And I ended up working in a 2-time award-winning Wild West comedy show for 5 years. And that really helped my career after that, because we would always have directors and producers come to our show, and they were scouting for new cast. And so that's kind of how it all developed. Yeah, thanks. And then what else? And then that just led to me working on more projects in Florida, because the show in Nevada was it was a seasonal position. So I would always go back to Florida, and I ended up going to college down in Orlando. And but then I was doing work up in New York, and I had a talk show in New York. It was called the Filmmaker Show, and it was just entertainment all around. Yeah. And so had that show, and I was also there. So I was a co-star, on location in New York, but then I also was the West Coast correspondent, because I was doing a lot of work in California, Nevada, and Arizona. And so did that. And then because of the Wild West show too, the founder of the Central Florida Film Festival, he and his wife were visiting Virginia City and Lake Tahoe, and they came to my Wild West show. And then he asked me to work for the Central Florida Film Festival, and I ended up hosting back in 2015. And then I came back a couple of years later when there was a new executive director of the festival, Brendan Rogers, and he asked me if I wanted to be it was like a SendFlow correspondent. So I was interviewing all the filmmakers, and the slogan for SendFlow is we're a film festival for filmmakers by filmmakers. So it's just, there's a really nice connection in that way. And then, my positions changed through the years with SendFlow, and I'm currently their marketing their event media coordinator. So I do
Very
that.
neat.
And I'm an actress, and I'm a director, a writer, and a video editor. So
Stellar.
thanks.
So basically, you got the unofficial invite and you accepted and you trucked along.
Just moved on. Yeah.
So what would you say? Obviously you also were big into surfing at age 7, and did you just kind of just want to just soar, just try so many different things and not let life bring up any obstacles, basically?
Yeah, I mean, that's what life's about, is just living. So yeah, I learned how to surf when I was 7. My dad taught me that. He's the one that made the surf movies. So that's just one of the things I do. So
did you guys ever have private screenings, like you'd look at each other's ads or movies and be like, I worked on
that? No.
No. Everyone went their separate way and just respect each other at their job title. Got it. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Now, of course, any kind of entertainment industry, everyone always will look at something and be like, I can do that. It's like, I'm sure you could, but you need the motivation and everything for it. Well, what kept your confidence levels up? What motivation did you keep reminding yourself to just
it was
remain
that
stable?
motivation. It was that motivation of ever since I was a kid that I knew this is what I wanted to do. When I began, like when I was 8, 9, and I was watching a lot of DVD bonus features and stuff of how to make films, I thought it was so inspiring in that way. And I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. And the only way you're able to do something is if you actually just get up and do it. And the other thing is I've gotten better through the years, but especially as a kid, I was very stubborn. So if people told me I couldn't do something, I had to prove them wrong. And I still kind of have that mentality too, but I think that's what helps keep me going. I always was kind of competitive and stuff, but I remember, like, in school I would have so many teachers. Your teachers are supposed to be the ones that inspire you. I had so many teachers who would just try to tear me down all the time. And they would say, you will never work in the industry. That's a 1 in a million chance, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I'm proving you wrong already, And so I don't know, just like now with my stuff, like filmmaking is what I love to do. And I love everything about it because I do everything in film, and I love acting. Acting is just something that's just pure joy. But like, being able to storytell and create, I love it so much. And I just worked on a short last week called Let Go, and it's based off a poem that a cousin of mine wrote. Her name's Ashley Elder. And this was one of these projects where I didn't have a full crew. It was just me, because this was more of like I need to do this for me kind of thing. So because I just enjoy it anyway. So I filmed, I directed, and the editing, everything. And just when you're able to create a story and just bring it to life, that brings so much joy into my heart. And so just having these types of thoughts, and that's what pushes me. It just keeps pushing me through, because this is what I want to do. And I'm never going to want to stop doing that.
That's very lovely. And how would you describe your narrative? Would you say it's just kind of just free flowing, or just like you say, just always going for the emotional core?
It's just kind of free flowing. It just depends.
Okay. Well, and I mean, in all fairness, you had like 3 different types of, movies in your house. You got musicals, wars, and Western movies.
Right.
So
and when I write, it's always something different. Like, I love comedy, and I've always loved comedy because I feel like laughter is the best medicine. And just like in my everyday life, if I can't make one person laugh in my day, I feel like I kind of failed the day. It's just, that's my own thing. But then I go on to these other, genres. Like I've written war films, I've written Westerns, dramas, like the piece that I just directed, Let Go. That's a it's a bit of a drama. It's just about overcoming heartbreak. So it's dramatic, but then it's got a happy ending at the end. But some of my stuff I've written does not have a happy ending at the end of it. And like in the works, like within a few months, I'm shooting a thriller that I wrote. It's just whatever comes to me. Like it's just whatever I'm feeling in the moment. That's what I go for. And I like a contrast of different genres because it makes storytelling more exciting.
Do you feel like many are having to just think outside the box, realizing that there's so many different misconceptions to a genre? Like people assume that because something is like, for instance, like maybe action based, it must instantly be stupid and filled with explosions, or because it's horror, that means it must be scary when it could just be gothic-y and have an implied monster as the antagonist, you know?
I think in like mainstream film, like all the big production companies and stuff, I feel like I don't know. I feel like the creativity's been lost. So I feel like in that way, if you're going to the theater, some people will, they'll expect with the genre, oh, it's going to be this and that, and whatever. But if you go into independent film, you're kind of shocked and amazed on how people can turn the genre around and make it a little more exciting because they are morphing genres together. Like I worked on and this has been around for a bit anyway, but like a few months ago, I filmed a comedic horror, and so a lot of the time when people think horror films, they think blood and guts and everything. They don't expect laughter whatsoever. So and that was an independent film too. So I think it really depends on what you're looking at, if you're looking at the mainstream stuff or if you're looking at independent. Because I think with the mainstream, I think a lot of people have lost, like ever since the writer's strike back in 2008, I feel like a lot of people have lost their creativity. And that's why we're getting a lot of like these reboots of like TV shows and movies and things.
Totally. There
Yeah.
also, I noticed, seemed to be I'm sure you've encountered this, a battle on what's the best kind of camera to work with.
Yeah.
Digital versus film. Just because something's shot in film doesn't necessarily mean it's good. At the same time,
Right.
you got digital with so many people who just don't know how to use certain zooms and tracking, and
Right.
You're going to see a blooper in any kind of quality of movie, and yet the internet's kind of taken up on storm by having various clickbait sites and even CinemaSins, which is just like just trying so hard to just look for any kind of blooper, which inevitably you're gonna find if you've seen a movie multiple times. So
Sure, absolutely.
well, what kept your stress levels kind of down when you're just seeing all this creative and disorderly conduct and just so many people just getting into culture wars?
Um, you mean like when it comes to the camera angles, or like when it comes to bloopers,
Just
just in general?
creative arguments to where it just seemed like it was just there to just make the internet go into chaos when you're just like, hey, you know, uh, respectfully disagree. I like this kind of thing. Or sure, it's big budget, it's got great acting, but the story is bananas bad. What?
I look for constructive criticism. So when it comes to the internet, I just for the most part don't pay attention to
Filter.
it.
Okay.
It's just like with anything, I mean, even a picture that you post or whatever, you're always going to have the people who praise you and the people who hate you. And, just have the stuff that is on the internet. I mean, we got billions of people in the world, right? So, and billions of people are on the internet. So you're going to have billions of love and hate things going on. And really, I think you need to just be close with your peers, just other creatives, and just create your own content. And whether it looks good or it doesn't look good to whoever, you made something and you made it because you thought it looked good. It's just, there's so many, I hate hearing, well, I like opinions from an audience that isn't, in the industry, because then they're not focusing so much on the type of camera angle or what it is. But there's times too where they don't have a lick of talent and they have no idea what they're talking about, and so I just, when it comes to, social media, just the internet, I do not pay attention to it. I focus on who I'm working with at that time, and, like close friends and stuff too. If I want like a non-entertainment industry, or like a non-entertainment industry, perspective on it.
For sure. Since a lot of things are being corporatized and it's hard to tell whether something is good or not because of hype machines being over the top and, like you say, deciding whether or not the story is there or if it's all a gimmick based on the technology being utilized. What were some of the best kind of mentors that you got in this industry besides yourself?
My mentors. Let's see.
Because like you did mention there were some awful professors that you'd occasionally encounter, and you're just like, you are not constructive. Well, you're just here to because you worked at a local station and you're just full of yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was funny with college, because I had a lot of people. I took an acting class. It wasn't even part of my degree. I was just doing it just for, a refresher and just because my friends were in the class too. And I remember like the professor, this is what I've learned. And this is why I don't always like acting classes, because what I've learned in acting classes is that sometimes the person teaching the acting class is like a washed up entertainer, like someone who does not continue. So they have a certain opinion. And I feel like some acting teachers give really bad advice. I think some give great advice. I think the ones that aren't actually teachers and who end up teaching, they give phenomenal advice. But like this professor in particular, she was washed up. She hadn't worked in like, I don't know, 20 years or something. And I felt like, like I feel like instead of like constructive criticism, she was just trying to tear down her students so they wouldn't succeed. And half the people that I know who were in that class, they want to act, but they're terrified to act now. And it was because of that professor. And I've always tried to give them more of a positive perspective of like, hey, it's not, that was just one opinion, and that goes back into like what's on the internet and everything. Like, don't focus on that all the time because it's one person's opinion and they just are some people are just trying to ruin the creative's day. But good mentors in my life. I had a great lighting professor who just gave me really great advice.
That is key.
So lighting is not like I know the basics to lighting, but I'm definitely not a pro at it. And I give props to people who are lighting technicians because it's a lot of hard work. You could at least use
certain shortcuts or certain verbiage that they would understand though.
Absolutely. And that's what you should know. That's what you should know as a director. And I remember, so I was in his class, his name was John Whiteley. That was my professor. It was, I don't know, maybe it was like the third week of class or something. And we were learning how to put a light together and set it up on a stage. And I was the last person to go because I was nervous and because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I remember I was like so nervous and people started laughing in class because I'm putting this light together and and I'm cracking jokes because I'm nervous and I'm like just trying to get through it. And then he said class dismissed and I'm about to leave class and he's like, Alana, I need to speak to you for a second. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm in so much trouble, and I'm like, he's going to kick me out of his class. And on top of that, he was British too. So that's just intimidating as it is, And so just the accent.
Get over here, you dumb
That's
Mark.
Basically, he was like, Alana, I need to see you for a moment. And I was like, oh no, it's going to be off with my head, And so I go up to him and I like the first thing I said was, am I in trouble? And he goes, no, God, no, you're not in trouble, And then he was telling me, he was just like, I want to talk to you. So he spent an hour with me after class getting
he saw
to know
you
me.
Wanted to actually learn, so he's like, no, I want to give you this extra advice. This is your extra.
Absolutely. And so he spent an hour getting to know me, like wanting to know why I was studying film, what the deal was, and what my experience was, and told him, and we developed a great friendship through this. But he told me, and this is like simple advice and everything, but he said to me, and I've kept it with me since, and I think it's why I'm kind of a go-getter when it comes to film and I just keep doing things. But he said, if you are ever nervous about doing something, go first instead of last, because then you can just get it over with. And, and if it works out great, and if it doesn't, then, you get to move on. And so,
I recommend it if this involves a burning accident, but fair enough. I know it. That's great.
Yeah. But so anyway, like it just, that helped me a lot. He was great. John Dodonna is another professor of mine over in Orlando. He's phenomenal. Another class I took that had nothing to do with my career, it was script analysis, but my God, that class was it was so encouraging.
Right.
Just for screenwriting and everything. I mean, God, script analysis is amazing because you just learn about life, because part of filmmaking too is yeah.
Half the movies I like are technically shit, but they're entertaining. Oh,
absolutely.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Right. So
it's the style.
But yeah. Yeah. So that professor was great. And then like I have a friend, his name's Jerry Parisi. He was my co-host for the filmmaker show, and he taught me a lot about live talk shows, and he taught me a lot about like film in New York, and yeah, there's a lot of people that I still look up to this day, I work with to this day. And I mean, every day I'm meeting more people in the industry, and they're teaching me something new, and I'm willing to learn, because I think going back to people who've been in the industry for a while and then they haven't really been successful or anything, is I think this is in general of people, but I think people, they don't want to continue to learn. So then of course you're not going to grow in your career or anything. I mean, life is about learning, so
that's so true. Yeah. Sometimes it's as simple as get an internship and buy everyone coffee, but by that point you're either burned out or you've already been just like, I got to get something in the bank, so.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Or I've done all these student films, but I'm not proud of any of them, and none of them can be edited enough to make it into a festival, or vice versa. They're festival worthy, but you're so close to it, you don't want to revisit.
Yeah, half the time you're working on these projects and you're so excited because you're like, oh great, I can have this for my acting reel, and you're like, oh no, I can't.
Right.
Because of just the camera quality or the editing or all of the above, even the storytelling. Like, yeah. That's when it gets disappointing.
Yeah, and life should not have too many disappointments. Right. Did you ever get to the point where you're just like, I got a great crew of actors, or film crew, and then next thing you know, they start moving away, or now I can't afford them, or something like that. And then you're like, well, now I better pick more people's brains now.
Absolutely. Like I was directing a short of mine that I'm currently still editing. It's a comedy called Undercover Date. And one of my, it's fun. It's a fun one. It's a lot of, I actually act in it too. So I definitely pulled a Mel Brooks where I'm like, wearing all hats.
There you go.
But he's my hero. So that there's a mentor, right? Well, I mean, I've never met him, but he's my film
inspiration.
Hero. But absolutely.
We'll get to your favorite movies here in a bit.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But anyway, so what was I saying? Undercover Date. Oh, right. So one of my actresses, she moved down to South Florida, and I was like, and so, I mean, it was one of those issues, because I already had an actor who was all the way in the panhandle of Florida. So that's like 7 hours away from where I am, because I'm in Central Florida. And yeah. And then she moved, she was an hour from me. And then she all of a sudden was 3.5 hours away from me. And we had, we were shooting this film, and everything was like set in stone. Everybody was going to make it. And then all of a sudden, like, my actors were perfect, and then it was my sound man and my assistant director, and we had to switch dates because they my assistant director is also a makeup artist, so she had a makeup thing to do, and I'm like, we've had this planned, like we have contracts, what's going, so it was, yeah, it's just there's always something like that with a film where like you think the crew or the cast are going to be great, and then just stuff happens, and then you just make mental notes of who you're going to use in your next project and whatever. So
yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
So again, we're all about being blunt and being very realistic on this show, because there's many I won't name names, but there's even some indie shows which don't even get even a quarter of the way into a lot of the harsh realities of film. They just want to have some semi-famous person talk on their show. But
right.
That you allowed me a good segue that I was eventually going to get into. So when you're trying to filter through, again, just, I once almost got extorted by someone who me and my father hired for a gig, and it was just like, just relentlessly bad. It's just like, dude, you signed the paperwork. What do you not understand? And so, Facebook is a more challenging place. And, obviously you can only use the block search engine so many different times.
Yeah.
What are some factors that you recommend for when, someone is disappointed and it's nothing personal, but they're just not your go-to, or they're just too big of a character and it's just getting in the way of everyone's creative interests, and sometimes you have friends who are into it. So what do you use as the main?
So how to fire someone, basically, is
well,
what you're saying.
Obviously I'm sure you know all about the contracts and the A's and everything, but what is your main filter that you use, other than have lunch with the person or just ask them 20 questions and then either like the results or not? What is your main barrier that you go through?
I don't like to fire people because I want people, no one does, right? But it's one of these things where I give it a go. I've never actually had to fire someone. I've been in situations where I've been close to it, but somehow I just managed to make it work. And I talk to the person and I'm like, all right, what's holding you up? And then I usually figure out like what's going on, if it's like a personal issue or if it's another gig they're working on, or if they're feeling that they just like actors, especially, like they sometimes they feel like that they can't mentally prep for a role or something, Yeah. And that was an issue I was having with a shoot last year. I was having personal issues with an actor, or they were having personal issues, and then it was leading to they just couldn't perform the role. And but I mean, what I do too is I always have backups too. If I can't, it's kind of like I got that training from theater, of having an understudy. So I always have
5
backups
other
if
names
like someone
you can call.
Right, exactly. And I let them know, I'm like, hey, I have a film going on and I already have somebody, for the position, blah, blah, blah. But would you be free in case if anything were to happen? And people usually say yes. And I get a couple no's and whatever. And that's it. So, but I've had, it's just, I really, I mean, I get, because I haven't, I've almost fired someone. I didn't fire someone. I just really try to get to the bottom of what's happening and see if we can work it out. And then otherwise I'll have to tell them to, we'll let it go. And then, that goes into some other paperwork there where I've released the person and I've paid them the amount they need to get paid. And that's it. So, but I've never had to sue anyone or anything, it's not.
Oh yeah.
That's a whole other topic.
Usually you can have some diction that you highlight. Have you ever had to put extra stress on the whole "will be paid upon completion of the product"? Seems like a lot of film crew like to read between the lines, and it's like, if you're not gambling on me here,
Right, yeah,
you're not extorting me. You're not. Oh, I thought you said this. No, bullshit. No misunderstanding. It's there in dark bold letters. Will be paid. Compensated.
Oh no, I definitely when I work with people, when I do contracts, I sit down one-on-one with that person and I read through it with them. And the reason why is because I don't usually get that with a contract. So if I get a contract, like if I'm just acting, I always am reading it, but I always have other people read it with me just in case if I miss something. But I make sure that like when I'm going over contracts with crew and cast, I read it with them and because I don't want any delays in the production, I mean, nobody does, that's just more money that you're wasting. You know what I mean? If you have to, have extra days because there's a conflict here or whatever. So, but yeah, I sit down, we have a nice lunch and I sit down with them and we go over everything. And I make sure a million times, are you comfortable doing this? Is this what you can do? Are you available at this time? And this is the kind of stuff you don't learn this. Like if you're a first time filmmaker, of course you don't know any of this stuff. This is stuff you just learn over time. This is from experience. So
right.
And they can, they can even teach you this in school and everything. But you know what? That's the thing. In film school, they didn't teach me any of the chaos that can go on a set. They just taught me the basics of everything. You learn from being on a set.
I'll give you one shitty piece of advice one professor gave me.
Okay.
Or actually more like they gave to one of my peers. And I just had to tell that peer, stop following that fucking stupid advice. That is
Right.
the biggest letdown you could ever do. He was like, well, if someone's misbehaving on your film set, you're just going to have to start all over. It's just like, fuck you. No. If you cost $1 million,
No.
that's where you say, I suggest you reread your contract. You know, I'll get past your diva attitude, but don't just do the whole, I guess I got a movie I can't finish. It's like, no, bullshit. I paid this person. They're coming back.
Yeah, they are coming back. I know. I had the issue with that actor that I had last year who was having the personal issues and they couldn't make it. I was like, you are like, it was great with this film too, because I actually went under budget. I didn't even go over budget, but I remember, and I was really glad for that because I ended up with this actor. He was supposed to film one day and I had him shoot the next day because I was like, basically, because he's a good friend of mine too. I basically said to him, I'm like, you got to be here for this date or your ass is grass, So
that's good. That's good. Because sometimes they're looking for that blunt energy, and other times it's like, okay, I'm trying to be on your level, but there's more to this than just being on the same ego wave or what have you. Is like what's holding you back. And there are going to be actors who just, for whatever reason, never turn down a role, but at the same time you have to just say, okay, you just said you can't make these last free readings, just say you do or do not want to do this, instead of just, well, I'll do it. No, I get that that's just out of bad habit. Just, can you do it or not?
It's just, either you can do it or please don't waste anybody else's time, but then sometimes you gotta, like, I don't know, in my opinion, like you can be understanding to a point, but at the same time you're getting a production, you've got to finish a production, so you got to either
and film crew guys
stick with them or
some of them are used to being yelled at or getting 3 hours of sleep, and that's where you're just like, okay, I get that you got these 2 other giant corporate gigs, you're filming a sporting event and then you're filming a Honda commercial, but just say, hey, that's a bigger priority. Contact me back in the next 2 months, instead of, I'm not sure, man. Well, there's yes and there's everything else,
Right. Yeah. It's just, and that's the thing. It's scheduling, because sometimes, like, things get booked and then, like, you put it in your calendar and everything, and then you forget all about it and you've booked other things going on. But it's time management. And I think people, because I've been known for this too. You get really excited about something and you're saying yes to everything, and it's just, you got to really pay it, because anyone in the industry, they have to remember this too. Like, they are their own boss. And so they have to do their own scheduling. Not everyone has an assistant where they have a schedule and they can keep you on track. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, like, you are your own business, as an actor, as an editor, whatever it is. So you need to know what roles you can take on and make sure it doesn't conflict with whatever else you're working on. And don't make too many promises to people, because if you keep making promises to people and then you fail on those promises, you're not going to get any work.
No,
it just ruins your reputation. Absolutely. So
totally. So
I'm glad we agree on this.
I think everyone does. It's just a lot of people half the time don't understand what a promise really is. They're just like, they're just so used to being commonly employed, and then it just is like, well, it might not happen right away, but just wait 2 to 5 years. Someone eventually is going to be like, yeah, this person never knows their lines, or they are the video guy, camera B is always late to set, never has a good excuse.
Absolutely. I'm partnered with 2 other production companies besides mine, and
sweet.
So like one of the production companies I was working with, they asked me, hey, how do you feel about adding this person on? I made a face and I was like, I mean, it's all right. And they were like, all right, how do you really feel? And I said, do not, absolutely not. And I explained to them too. I said, I am not saying this like this is not for a personal reason. This is a professional reason, but this is why. And here was a situation and I wouldn't trust it. And
I'm glad you bring that up. I get tired where everyone thinks, oh, everyone's talking smack about each other. It's like, no, it's nothing personal. This actor is competent, but they're not a good collaborator. They're not good at feeding off of the other actors in the room. They're kind of the ugly duckling, so to speak. Or this guy's good with storyboarding and taking your shots, but often speaks his mind way too much and he's not being helpful. He's just kind of wanting to take over your movie, and that's not cool, you know?
Right.
Or he thinks that
Yeah.
or he talks down to the director acting like they're a dipshit who's never done any movie before.
Yeah. But oh god, going into directors, like and this is what has made me become a better director, is working with not so great directors. And it's tough but there's a whole thing about respect, and no matter what position you're in, but like you can have a very experienced actor and a brand new director, you know, and that's when you don't talk down to a director because they don't have as much experience, or maybe they have years of experience and they're still not the best director or something. It just means they haven't grown in their, you know, profession. But it's like everyone's just got to respect each other, because we're all on this set making a movie. We're all here for the same reason. We want to storytell, you know, and so there shouldn't be any of that conflict. And like it can't go back to high school. And I have been on not so much with crews, but with actors, and not all actors either. But when I first worked in New York, I was a part of this show that never happened. But the extras, of all things, the extras were being extra. Let me put it that way. They did not know that I was a supporting role. So I made the joke, and because the film, it wasn't a film, it was a TV series. It was set at a bar, and they filled the glass. And I'm someone who always likes to crack jokes, even if they're like corny, punny, whatever. That's just me. So they had a glass of wine, but they put grape juice in it. And I was just joking. And I was like, oh, it's not the real stuff. And this extra, she just turns her head at me and she goes, why would you think that they would have real alcohol on a set? What an amateur. And so a few seconds later, because I just kept my mouth shut, a few seconds later, the director comes up to me and is telling me, all right, and then in this scene, what you're going to be doing, blah, blah, blah. And the girl had no clue that I had a supporting role. And
we'll return after these messages.
Hello and welcome to Culture Shocked, the pop culture podcast brought to you by four aging millennials and our outdated opinions. Join us every Tuesday as we discuss movies, TV, games, and even music, new and old.
Dude, what do you think you're doing?
Are you seriously trying to record a promo without us right now?
Well, yeah.
Dude, you can't just do the promo by yourself. Who's gonna listen to that?
Yeah, and you probably haven't even told them that we're a pop culture podcast where we always agree on everything. For instance, the Sam Raimi trilogy, easily being the best of the Spider-Man movies.
No. But I think we can all agree that Jaws is a classical masterpiece.
Nope, don't like that. But we do all agree that the sequel trilogy of Star Wars is the best in the Skywalker saga, right, guys?
That comment is so ridiculous. I don't even know where to
Anyways, that'll do it from all of us here at Culture Shock. Thanks for listening.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win. On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and booty debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
We let things pile up in the DVR, we add them to our queues, we wait for the DVDs and Blu-rays. We time shift. The Time Shifters Podcast. Sci-fi, horror, fantasy, superheroes, comedy, action, film, television, maybe some not-so-current events. Find us on iTunes or at timeshifterspodcast.com.
Cool thing about Blind Knowledge is we are in multiple countries. We are worldwide all across the globe. We are in the US, we are in the UK, we are in Canada, Germany, India, Japan. We're in Australia, y'all. BlindKnowledge.com. Now back to the feature presentation.
But it was just, and I remember she like was just like very catty with the other extras and stuff. And it's just like, there's no need for that. Like, just respect one another, you know? So it's just, I don't know. It's funny. The people are funny, but I think the further you get into your career, because that was only like a couple of years of me being in, you know, the industry and still learning a lot of stuff. You learn very quick of, you know, like how to act when you're on a set. And the more experience you get, the more respect you get and whatever, but and you learn how to, you know, respect others as well. So anyway, I went on.
So you've covered some good topics there. You know, the hotheads usually aren't seen within 2 years. And if they're still out there, you often just got to be blunt behind the scenes saying, okay, we're going to shake hands on this. Don't you dare let anyone know. I don't want to work with this guy. They're a douchebag to everybody for zero reasons. And this camera guy, they're great, but their computer's always crashing. They're always wanting to upcharge people. Don't work with this scumbag. So how do you recommend? You've already brought up some great points on, you know, obviously you've asked everyone 10 questions, and if their answer is I don't know, then already this is time to just politely end the meeting. But do you think web series are still going to go strong, or is everyone kind of cutting down on it a little less just because not everyone's watching YouTube as much as the streaming platforms?
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is like there's so many streaming platforms now. I think it goes back to if you have a really good story. If you have a really good story, like something original, because I think people, and I know I am, just as a creative, I'm tired of the repetitive story in the way of it looks exactly like, because, you know, there's a formula in storytelling, you know, and depending on the genre and everything, but like horror films are a great example of like, you know, and people have been making jokes about this for years, but you're watching a horror film and you just know when the next person's going to die. There's no suspense, there's no shock, there's no, and you know, going into comedies, it can be like the same. I think comedy's gone way downhill through the years too. Just, you know, people's humor, it's very like, I like intelligent humor, you know, and I feel like there's a lot of humor that is not very intelligent, but you know, going back to like
fun, but it can sometimes be a little too much. You're like, okay, you got too cute for your own good.
Yeah, so like I think with a web series, in order for a web series to last, it's just like with anything like Netflix or Prime or Hulu, whatever. It's just, you know, you got to have something that really gets people's attention and something that's different, you know. And so, you know, to answer your question, I don't know when it comes to the web series. Like it's I mean, everyone's on the internet. It's easy to access a web series. Now, the other hand is like, if you have a web series where you don't have to have a subscription and it's a really good story and you have really good talent and really good editing and camera and direction, then absolutely the web series will live on. But it's one of those things where if people do not continue to push all the way through with their creative talents, then yeah, the web series is definitely going to go away. And then we're going to have more of the mainstream stuff happening on Hulu, Netflix, and Prime.
Do you think there's also an increase in just too many people having very little happening in their story, like just endless shots of people walking and
yeah, really I think people are not, it's like, I think because, and like, now are you talking about like web series, or are you talking about
just
like
in general?
Amazon?
Like there's been an increase in like movies that are just like so self-indulgent. You're like, Jesus, it's just a simple someone breaking up with their girlfriend, or
yeah, I get bored with scenes quick. I get bored with scenes really quick because I'm
talking more like the A24 movies. Like everyone feels like they have to be shocking, and you're like, but the first 2 hours were literally nothing going on.
Yeah, and that's when you need a better editor. Like, you know, like you need a better editor, you need a better script editor, it's just, I don't know. I feel like people are, because there's so much going on. People are producing so many projects, so it's like a race, basically. No one's taking the time to really pay attention to what they're producing. And they're like, oh yeah, this like 5 hours of this person walking or whatever it is. They're like, that's great. Let's put it in, and that's not the case. Like people need to really, they need to bring it back. They need to go back and look at our history of film and where, there's a reason why we are where we are today. And if you go look at older films, like you look and see how there is so much detail that was focused on, and this includes scripts, it includes acting, set design, everything. No one half-assed anything in film because you were filming with film and it was really expensive, and so I think because everything's digital and you don't have to pay for film, like there's things that we are able to save money on now. Yeah, absolutely. Like, so people don't care as much about the storytelling or anything. So yeah, it's like people have lost so much creative value and it drives me crazy. And it's another reason why I'm in the industry, because I want to bring the old stuff back in the way of like professional looking film, professional art, just, I want people to look at my work and be like, wow, that was really pleasant on my eyes. I mean, that's not the exact review I want, but you know what I mean? It's like sometimes you watch something and you're like, God, that was such a waste of my time. So that's how I feel about that.
Sure. I notice a lot of people will also, I don't know, just not say what's really on their mind. Like they'll be like, yeah, the movie was great just because it was a success, as if they're hoping that producer will read their Twitter and hire them as a PA or script supervisor. It's like, no. Don't kiss ass. Just say what you think.
Right. Yeah.
You'll be employed. There's plenty of producers who will greenlight anything, and that's why there's all these knockoffs or twin movies the same summer. They're trying to beat each other. They don't really care whether it's good or not. They just want their money. So.
They just want their money. I know, and I feel like that just cheapens everything having to do. It's like, we look at this. We have always been inspired to work in film. We watched something and it clicked for us and we said, yes, I want to work in this industry, right? And so I feel like that movie magic has gone away within the past 10 years. It's definitely gone away, and it's just, they're just it's like it's like anything, like it's almost like film is like factory made now, it's not like, it doesn't come from, the heart of a filmmaker, it's just like, oh yeah, this looks great. Let's make 5 of this, film or whatever. But like, I feel that way about the new Hocus Pocus. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, the trailer kind of looks cool and stuff, but I'm like, why are you really losing that much creative ability that you just have to like copy something again? Like, why do we have to do this again? Like, the original was great.
That's how I was with Ghostbusters. It's like, okay, you did a female all-star cast, and now, okay, Jason Reitman, you were doing pretty good just doing your own type of satirical and dramatically rewarding pieces. Now you're like, oh, well, my old man's passing the torch, so I guess I better take over his franchise. It's like, and now everyone's, again, it's the men versus women arguments, and it's just like, okay, again, but it's not recreating what everyone liked about the original, where it was like Beverly Hills Cop, or Super Troopers, where a bunch of comedians got together, took a premise, added their own dialogue, and just had fun with the gimmick and walked out after 80 minutes, instead of just elongating it just so you can sell toys or get more nerds geeking out. It's like, for God's sakes.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. And it's just like, all right, so there's Marvel, right? So they come out with a bunch of movies, but the thing is, these are comic books, and the comic books are good. The comic books are good because it's real storytelling. So all of these characters, and even if they do, like for Captain America, they did the I can't remember the name of the show right now, the one with Bucky and
Captain,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
like I mean, but these are stories that continue on and they make sense, but if you have like a Ghostbusters and then a female Ghostbusters and whatever, like there's no story that flows with it, makes sense to it all. It just is, it's nothing. That's how I feel about it. It's nothing.
They just put their name on it. and
Yeah.
just to sell a ticket.
They
But
stamp their name on it and they're like, all right, we're making $1 million. Now, a good example of something that flows beautifully and it was made years ago and then they just brought it back and it's phenomenal is Top Gun Maverick. What a good film. I don't know if you saw it, but
I couldn't get into that movie.
You couldn't get into it?
It was just very lifeless to me, just imitating frames from the first one. And the first one was
interesting.
already a recruitment ad, but I was just like,
Yeah.
I don't find this entertaining at all.
Interesting. I like this. I like it that you didn't find it entertaining and I found it very entertaining. But see, but that's the good thing. That's good opinions right there. That's good filmmaking perspective and opinions.
I'm glad
and
everyone went and saw all the combat scenes in 3D. But my main issue is just after a while, just I'm seeing repetition of everything that's already been done before. Sometimes that is
Right.
good, but all I'm seeing nowadays are often homages and CGI just endlessly just that looks unfinished. It just
Oh, see, now you're bringing up a good topic on CGI. I can't stand a lot of CGI because, okay.
or
I'll
it comes
put
out in
this way.
spring and it's followed by an unrated extended cut. I'm like, so basically you gave me
Right.
a half-assed movie and you want me to go see the better version on home media. What the hell?
Yeah, like I feel like with CGI, a lot of stuff looks like a video game to me. And I don't know
Oh,
if
yes.
it's because
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I'm an editor and I just like notice this stuff, but it drives me crazy because I'm like, I'm watching it
And then they
I'm
don't know
like,
the tone. Like, is it so bad it's
Yeah.
good? Is it just stupid for the stupid sake? Or is it
right.
fun, but it's really not in on the joke? And so
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
where everyone gets into arguments about Fast and Furious. Some people will gladly go see it just because it is over the top, and there's others who think it's dumb, but just they love their car porn, and there's others who like to love it,
Sure.
hate watch it, and it's just like, well, so I'm even more confused. Who is the audience?
Right. Exactly.
Do
Yeah.
you just love it, or do you hate it, or do you love to hate it?
I know. It's like the people who like love to hate it or whatever. It's kind of like a like Mystery Science Theater, and then,
Yes.
like,
Oh my god.
I love Mystery Science Theater. Oh my god, I was just watching one the other day for Birdemic. Have you seen that
Yes.
episode?
So fun fact, I saw that at Rift Tracks Live. That was my first event for that. I don't know if you
Oh, cool.
but have you followed Movie Sign with the Mads?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Trace and Frank get together and they'll often have a Vincent Price movie, but it's so cool because they're actually in the theater and
Yeah, absolutely.
They're still doing Zoom events, so you get a free copy of the thing if you can't make the online show.
Right. Yeah, that's so cool. It's so cool. I loved it. And I think that's the one I watched the other day was the live one when they were doing Birdemic. So maybe I saw you in the audience.
And like you say, it's just a filmmaker who kind of like Tommy Wiseau or Neil Breen, not sure what they're making, and you get an even more confusing answer when you ask them in an interview.
Absolutely.
Is this a PSA or is this a horror movie? And they pretty much almost do a politician move where they kind of back into a wall a little more, and you're just like, oh, so I still don't know what you're going for.
Right.
But you've done a good job not answering the question, so I guess, yeah, you don't know.
Right. Oh, I don't want to mention the actor who that I interviewed once at the film festival because they kind of are partnered with our festival in a way. I can't say who, but they are well known for having a very meditative voice and just going completely off the rails with their answers to questions. And
no amount of PR can tell them,
Yeah.
please, simple answers only.
When we're off the air, I'll tell you exactly who
Be
it is.
more
but-
predictable.
Yes, it's just like you're like, wait a minute, what?
How do we get started on this? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like we went from film to talking about grocery shopping. What's going on here? Like where are you? Yeah, exactly. Like if I could do the Tim Allen, from
there
Home
you go.
Improvement, that would be it right there. That's the exact reaction.
Oh man. So before we go, so you've been pretty multi-genre. You've tried your hand at wearing different hats. What are a few other dream projects that you think could be a reality? Like some people were trying Zoom voiceovers and online animation post COVID. Some other people were finding other ways to use crowdfunding. And I met a really cool group, even in Houston City, apparently, called Cinedux, where basically all these college and theater people literally just would weekly get together and swear to help each other out on every project they worked on.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
what are some positive growth that you're working on now that you think will actually lead to a bigger thing?
Positive growth. First off, it's like because of us like going through this pandemic and everything and film being on a hold,
Yeah.
I think getting people on an actual set is like number one goal. Cause like that's what it's all about. And like doing the Zoom stuff, like if you're doing voiceover stuff and everything, that's great to be able to do it at home. I totally agree to that. But like I prefer like being in the room with like other creatives, because I think that's where you get your best work. So like
Right.
there are some filmmakers in this area in particular who are like, yeah, like I like, keeping a distance and not being away. And I just don't think that's really a good collaborative move. So I mean, just with
They
my
just want
future
the
projects and
name,
everything.
credit.
Yeah,
and
they
that's
just
it.
want the name, the credit, everything. My big move for the future and for the rest of my career is just being there in the moment and learning from each other and really growing with your project. Because the other thing is too is like when especially if you like write something and you're directing it or produce it, whatever, like 10% of what you've created on a script like is going to be shown on film. Something changes, and then it can turn into a completely different story. But that happens if you're actually on set with people and you're getting to know them. And I like table reads too, like table reads. I've always liked going there in person, meeting the co-stars, everybody, and
Getting a
like a
feel.
lot of table. Yeah, absolutely. Because like I don't think you can get much of a feel when you're doing a table read on a Zoom call. Now it's been great, especially when it makes life so much easier. If you have different cast members in different areas and everything, there's no travel and everybody can be there at the same time and everything. But then at the same time, you're looking at them through a computer screen and you can't like you don't have any interaction beforehand. So half the time when you're doing a table read, you're meeting everyone for the first time as soon as you click the start button, but you don't get like the proper introduction like behind the scenes or anything. You don't get a feel for each other. And I think it can make things awkward, especially if you have like a freeze in the audio or the the visual, and so you're like that pause wasn't supposed to be that dramatic in this scene, you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah. You're a little more less verbiage and little less over emoting.
Right. Yeah. No, it's just I like, in-person stuff. And I think we got to get back to that, because it's just in my opinion, when you are around these people, you get to, have more of a side conversation with them before the meeting or something, you really get to learn about those you're working with. And there's more of a comfort level, and in a way too, it's less time wasted once you're on set.
Bingo. There,
yeah.
See, they just said the magic word, guys.
Yep.
Less time. 3 magic words. Less time
Yes.
wasted.
Less time wasted.
It's one thing if your lights went out and you're shooting other scenes that don't require it while you wait for a repair to come to the set,
Sure, absolutely.
But
But
having all these shot lists and everyone still doesn't know what they want to shoot, man, you can't get
well,
that.
that's the thing too. And I mean, I've even experienced in table reads too, like I've experienced like we're going over the script. Right. that too, absolutely. But like even like my own directions, and I'm with my cameraman and stuff, and like I am visualizing the movie as I'm hearing the actors, perform during this table read. And then something sparks my imagination and I'm like, you know what? I know it's not in the script, but I really like the way you said this. And I like this reaction. I liked their facial expression. So we're going to add this shot here. I mean, it's just, the film is like, when you are shooting a film, it is changing up until basically you're done editing,
Oh,
so
yes.
that's a big deal. Like, your movie is not going to be complete until it is completed. Like,
Thank
that's
you.
when you're editing, like whatever you're filming, what you filmed, and then you're sitting at your computer and you're editing, like, film is going to change completely, even with just the cuts you use,
Mhm.
so
There's always going to be a great angle that not even the camera picked up, that unfortunately you can only imply off screen or with a great musical cue.
right. Exactly. So, but I back to what I was saying before, having like in-person productions going on fully, I think that it definitely will help with my creativity, but I hope it would help with other people's creativity, of just being in the same room with everybody and getting to know them a little more on a personal level, so you know how to make them truly shine.
Now riddle me this: have you ever had a cameraman also even show up for the table reads, and sometimes just kind of record, so then you can even see who's really invested and how you were
Yes.
directing them?
I love it. I love it when I have, like, because I love BTS. I love having behind the scenes
Some of them
footage.
get
So I like having
intimidated
that.
because they wanted to be more private. I'm like, no, it's a helpful tool too.
But absolutely, because, well, it definitely is. And I think like, for the actors, if they're intimidated by it, it's like, well, if you're intimidated with a camera in your face, then you probably shouldn't be doing
You're
this.
not going to take
First
direction
of
well
all,
anyway. So
absolutely, and you might as well. Table reads are rehearsal. So if you have a camera there, it's rehearsal. And this also, I mean, it helps cameraman and everything too. So it just,
damn it, do I got to bring your professor to this set if you're gonna act this way?
but
Will you behave when they're
yeah.
looking over your shoulder?
So, but yeah, no, I love having a cameraman on board at all times, because then I can look back on, because I'm terrible at note taking. So even though I take my own notes and they're in my head and everything, I forget stuff. Yeah. So if I'm like, forget the paper, I'm like, well, just record it and I'll go over it later. And but so it's great note taking for me, because I get to look, because I'm focusing on so many, I got, two actors, and they're doing dialogue with each other, right? And so I may be focusing on one actor more than I'm focusing on the other. So then I get to look back on that footage later, and then I get to focus on the other actor. So
there you go.
That's what I do.
You already know the dialogue sounds good, and how it, the cameraman was never going to let you down in terms of the shots. So now it's like, I got to just make sure which of these takes of the acting to use, instead of let's just use
absolutely.
the first take when it's not the best take.
Absolutely. Yeah, but yeah, I can look at facial expressions. I mean, and I get that from like theater too, and there's always that battle of theater versus film. And, because so many film people are like, oh, theater actors, they're so loud and they're so big with everything. And then, whatever. And then theater people are like, oh, film is so small and little details and everything.
I'm glad you bring that up. I was at a college where the film and theater department fucking hated each other. And because they hated each other, because they spited each other, they would make sure their schedules didn't correlate just so they could get department of the year. It was just like, for real. So because of your own personal politics and hating each other's guts, you're going to make us all suffer.
I know. It's like the West Side Story for college.
Absolutely. These two are Vatos versus Cholos. These guys are fucking each other's shit up. It's
right. Yeah, it's not good.
And it's not even over a woman or private property. It's over just, I hate your guts. I got a bigger silver blade than you. I was here first. It's like, okay, turf war, idiots.
Absolutely. And so, like, I really look at, because I like theater actors, and maybe it's because I'm also a theater person too, and I know like the difference between theater acting and film acting. And so I like to, more than anything, because I'm so big on like, life lessons and blah blah blah, like just with my everyday life, I definitely want I'm going to learn from my cast and crew, but I want my cast to definitely like learn something from me. And so like having like facial expressions, like good facial expressions, I think is a great thing in film, because I don't like dullness. Like Kristen Stewart is not my favorite actress because she's just got the same face all the damn time, you know? And so like, if you can tell the story with your eyes, like, and not say a word, that's amazing to me, you know, but that's
Max
my opinion.
von
And that's
Sydow. Boom.
Yeah.
But no, I know what you mean. It does also get annoying when you even have to tell people, it's like, I don't hate them, but I don't care for them. I just think they're restricted to this format, and this is not what I'm talking about at all. But then also, I don't have $1 million to find out the hard way based on investor interest whether or not it does or does not work. So it does get also annoying telling other people, is like, okay, that's great and all, but you're not going to get a Christopher Nolan shot on this production. It's not going to be here. No. So if that's what you require, then move out now. Not a diss, but also not realistic expectations. You know, we're going for more, kind of like you say, recorded stage play and with experimental indie style. You know, it's just it's so tough to explain the different styles to other people, because there's even other people who seem to just think, oh, there's no audience for a Michael Bay production or a trashy slasher. It's like, well, yes, there is. Why do you think they keep making them? But
there's an audience for everything. And that's why film is like, people get so they get so worried about, they want like a certain angle and they want a certain thing and whatever, but they don't understand that, like, you know, film, it was like, think about when film was first created, you know, it was a moving picture with a crank camera, you know, and it came from books I've read and stuff. It came from like motion picture toys and things like that. So I mean,
the book.
Right. It's
even though a book requires 6 pages to tell one scene.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, you know, it's just, film is something that is film is developing every day. That you can take that however you want it. Yeah. You know?
I love that.
The Dalai Lama has spoken, you know. But,
oh, Dolly. Do you want to describe yourself as the Dalai Lama?
I'm just kidding. But
no, like the camera dolly.
Yeah. Oh, very
Too
good.
meta.
I like, man. I like.
It's all right. We got too many Apple Crate jokes. Those who don't know what we're talking about, Google it.
Yeah, just Google it.
I was so glad when I think I saw director Jonathan Frakes, who used to be an actor, who was talking in an interview about a new show he was working on, and I was so happy that whoever wrote the editorial actually linked the Apple Crate joke instead of just leaving their viewers wondering what's he talking about.
Right.
It was like, thank you. I love it when someone links to internet slang and it's relating to film slang. Film stuff. Absolutely. Only film crew members get.
Absolutely. But
are you ever on even any of those film set meme groups? I love the ones where they're like, connect the dots. I can't remember. We'll fix it in post as part of the no crew.
Right. I love it. It's great because I'll post stuff on my story on like Instagram or something and nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about. And I'm like, good. I'm glad you don't know what I'm talking about.
It's more cryptic. It's mine.
Yes.
She did it her way.
It's great too because like when not everyone gets the joke, you say the joke and then you say it in a big crowd of people and somebody's like, ha, you just hear a laugh random and you're like, oh, there's my new friend. They get it. So.
There's my new friend. And then it's a slow building belly aching laugh.
Exactly.
And everyone else is just like mystified or texting WTF, what's going on?
And that's
fine. Laughing at me is like, no, but we might as well.
We might as well be. Yeah. Film. It's a great industry. You meet a lot of very interesting people in this industry. Good and bad. Mostly good.
Let's focus on the good. Filter out the bad. I replaced my filter. The bad is no more.
No, this is what it is. Focus on the good and write about the bad in your next script.
There you go.
Yep.
If they want to walk out of the premiere saying, you're talking about what an asshole I am. Yeah, you're right. Feel free to leave the premiere.
Yep.
So this has been a joy talking to you. Would you care to talk about
a lot of fun. Thanks.
I hope to. would you care to talk about the boot campaign, which over 600 celebrities have contributed to, which you're promoting?
Oh yeah, boot campaign. So when COVID first was happening, my good friend Johnny Joey Jones, if you can say that name really fast.
Johnny Joey Jones is a tongue
Johnny Joey
twister.
Jones.
Johnny Joey Jones coming to TNT.
My friend, Joey is a very good friend of mine. Joey Jones. He's awesome. He's a
You promise he's not a wrestler.
Retired Marine.
Okay.
Yeah, not a wrestler. He's built like a wrestler, but he's a retired Marine who he retired Staff Sergeant in the Marine Corps. He back in 2010 he lost. Yeah, thank you. He lost both of his legs above the knee in Afghanistan when he stepped on an IED. He was an EOD tech. And so he, through the years, he has been doing public speaking, and he's been involved with different veteran organizations. And he got involved with the Boot Campaign, which is a nonprofit veteran organization. And they sell combat boots to raise money for veterans and military families. And so Joey, when COVID first happened, he wrote an op-ed, because he is a Fox News contributor. He wrote an op-ed talking about how going through the coronavirus and being in quarantine is like being deployed in Afghanistan and fighting an invisible enemy, just like the IEDs that are in the ground. And so he contacted me and he asked me if I would make a film based off, well, at the time it was a video, because he wanted like a YouTube video and stuff. But then I ended up asking him if I could put it in film festivals. And so anyway, so he asked me to make a film based off this op-ed he wrote. And so we got 14 veterans, including him, involved with this project. And we called it We Will Get Through This. And so all the veterans, they read the narration to the film. And then I collected a lot of DOD footage from a site called Divids, and just put this piece together. And it was just to spread a positive message.
Sites, and you can make a great documentary.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was just to spread a positive message saying we will get through COVID. And so we lent the video to the Boot Campaign, and that's how I got involved with them. And so they posted my video, short film, on their YouTube page, and it was on their website, still on their website, I'm pretty sure. And then it was featured on Fox and Friends twice. And it opened a lot of doors for me, because now I edit videos for a lot of different military nonprofits, like the Inspire Up Foundation and Giving Tuesday Military. And then I also edit videos for Military Families Magazine. And
nice.
Anyway, so then like a year after, the film was made, I was having lunch with Joey, and I said, hey, can I put this movie? Joey Jones.
Sorry.
Can I put this in film festivals? And he's like, I didn't even know that was an option. Absolutely. And so we were featured at a couple different, so we were featured at a couple different film festivals, and then we won Best Florida 180 at the Avalonia Film Festival. And now, because it's been a couple years since we made We Will Get Through This, I'm about to retire the project from the film festival circuit, but it is going to be shown at the Cobb International Film Festival in Marietta, Georgia in the beginning of August. So I'm looking forward to that. And a lot of our veterans live in Georgia too, so it would be nice to get them together and, just for like the last showing in festivals. But it's a cool piece. So if you guys want to check it out, it's on Boot Campaign's YouTube page. It's called We Will Get Through This. And it's a great piece. And now, because now we're getting through COVID and everything, now I use this film as a, because it's about, fighting an invisible enemy. So invisible enemies can be anything. It could be depression and anxiety. So it's a positive message for anyone who's dealing with something, and just letting them know that you will get through this.
Stellar. And
Thanks.
So glad that they were able to get someone who can go through any kind of subtext, any kind of message, any kind of theme,
right?
Conquer it. So what do you have next for Central Florida Film Festival? I saw that there weren't any current events, but I didn't know if you guys were doing online Zoom film screenings or.
Well, we have been able to do in person. We've been able to have the festival in person. Really, since COVID happened, we didn't have it in 2020, so we started up again in 2021. But we were like the first in-person festival in Florida to actually have a live event in person. And so our festival is every January, and it's going to be. It's the end of January. I'm actually looking it up because I can't remember the dates. It's like the 20.
I did the same thing. We're like, oh,
the
shit.
20th or the. It's. Let me look. It's that's for 2022. It's the last week of January, but you can go onto centralfloridafilmfestival.com and get the dates for it there. And for anyone who wants to have a film at the Central Florida Film Festival, it is a international film festival. It really, oh my God, it's such a fun event. But you can go on Film Freeway and you can still submit. Our last day we're accepting submissions is October 1st. So
stellar.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this has been a delight talking to you. And
yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks so much.
All right. You heard it from everyone here, guys. Producer Phillips, look out.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up